The cap and gown felt heavier than they should have as I walked across the stage at Stanford Graduate School of Business. 2 years of grueling MBA coursework, countless late nights, and sacrificing every weekend. And the 4 seats I'd reserved for my family sat completely empty. I forced a smile as Dean Morrison handed me my diploma. "Congratulations, Ms. Williams. Your thesis on emerging market acquisitions was exceptional." "Thank you," I replied, scanning the audience one more time. Nothing. My parents, my brother Marcus, and my sister Jennifer had all promised they'd be here. Dad had even said he was proud that someone in the Williams family was finally getting a real education. As I walked off the stage, I pulled out my phone. No messages. No missed calls. No explanations. Probably too busy, I thought, trying to push down the familiar sting of disappointment. The reception was in full swing in the courtyard outside the business school. Families clustered around their graduates, taking photos, sharing champagne, celebrating achievements. I stood alone by the fountain, watching other people's joy while trying to convince myself it didn't matter. My family had a pattern of missing important moments. They'd skipped my college graduation too, claiming Dad's hardware store couldn't spare him for a weekend. They'd missed my 25th birthday because Marcus's son had a soccer game. There was always something more important. Always a reason why my achievements took a backseat to everyone else's priorities. Maybe they'll call later, I told myself, the same lie I'd been telling for years. The truth was, my family had never understood what I was doing. When I'd quit my entry-level marketing job 3 years ago to pursue my MBA, they'd been horrified. "You're throwing away a perfectly good career," Mom had said. "Marketing pays well and that company has benefits. Why would you go back to school and pile up more debt?" "Because I have bigger plans," I tried to explain. "Bigger plans?" Dad had laughed. "Sweetheart, you're 26 years old. It's time to be realistic. Get married, settle down, maybe work part-time at the store. This dream of being some big business executive is just that, a dream." They had no idea what I'd been building during those MBA years. While my classmates were networking at mixers and competing for internships at consulting firms, I was quietly acquiring small companies, restructuring them, and building what would eventually become Williams Global Enterprises. It had started with a struggling local bakery that I'd purchased for $50,000 using my savings and a small business loan. Within 6 months, I'd streamlined operations, renegotiated supplier contracts, and expanded into catering. The bakery's revenue tripled. I sold it for $180,000 and immediately reinvested. From there it snowballed. A failing tech startup that just needed better management. A small manufacturing company whose owners wanted to retire. A restaurant chain that was hemorrhaging money due to poor financial controls. Each acquisition taught me more about business, about people, about finding value where others saw only problems. My family knew I was playing around with some business stuff, as Marcus put it, but they assumed it was small time. When I tried to explain that I'd purchased a mid-sized logistics company, Dad had patted my head like I was still 12 years old. "That's nice, honey. Just don't get in over your head." Over my head. If only he knew. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Williams?" I turned to find a woman in her 30s approaching, carrying a professional camera and wearing a press badge. She was impeccably dressed in a navy blazer and had the confident bearing of someone used to interviewing important people. "Yes, I am," I replied, confused. "Can I help you?" "I'm Rebecca Chin from Forbes magazine. Congratulations on your $2.8 billion acquisition." She extended her hand with a smile. "We've been trying to reach you for weeks about featuring you in our Young Entrepreneurs Reshaping Industry issue." I stared at her, momentarily speechless. Forbes knew about the Meridian acquisition already? The deal had only closed yesterday and we tried to keep it quiet until after graduation. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "How did you find out about Meridian Industries?" "Are you kidding?" Rebecca laughed. "It's the biggest acquisition story of the quarter. A 28-year-old MBA student secretly building a conglomerate and then dropping $2.8 billion on a Fortune 500 company? This is exactly the kind of story our readers love." My phone started buzzing with missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Then I saw the contact name that made my stomach drop. Dad. Then Mom. Then Marcus. Then Jennifer. The calls were coming in faster than I could decline them. Suddenly, the family that couldn't be bothered to show up for my graduation was desperately trying to reach me. Ms. Williams, Rebecca continued, pulling out a tablet, our research team has been tracking Williams Global Enterprises for months. 16 acquisitions in 3 years, revenue growth of 2,400%, and now this Meridian deal that makes you one of the youngest billionaires in the country. How does it feel? Billionaire. The word hit me like a physical blow. With the Meridian acquisition, my net worth had indeed crossed into 10-figure territory, but I'd been so focused on the business strategy that I hadn't fully processed the personal implications. I've been focused on building sustainable businesses, not the numbers, I said honestly. That's exactly what makes this story so compelling, Rebecca said, making notes. You've been flying completely under the radar. Most people your age would be shouting about their success from every social media platform. Instead, you've been quietly revolutionizing how acquisition-based growth works in the modern economy. More calls. Now my phone was buzzing constantly. I could see text messages flooding in. Sarah, call me back immediately. Dad. Why didn't you tell us? Mom. Holy shit sis, Forbes is calling you a billionaire, Marcus. The whole family is freaking out, Jennifer. Ms. Williams, Rebecca said, would you mind if we did a quick interview? Our photographer is here, and this setting, successful graduate celebrating alone while her phone explodes with attention. It's perfect for the story we want to tell. I looked around the courtyard. Other families were still celebrating, taking group photos, making toasts. And here I was, standing alone with a Forbes reporter while my family, the same family that couldn't spare a Saturday afternoon for my graduation, frantically tried to reach me now that they'd learned I was worth billions. Actually, I said, declining another call from Dad, I think that would be perfect. Rebecca's photographer appeared as if by magic, a tall man with expensive equipment who immediately began setting up shots. Sarah, can you hold your diploma and look toward the empty seats your family was supposed to occupy? This contrast between personal achievement and family absence is exactly what we want to capture. I posed for the photos, diploma in hand, empty chairs behind me, phone still buzzing with ignored calls. The irony wasn't lost on me. The most important moment of my professional life was being documented by strangers while my family desperately tried to insert themselves into a success story they'd never believed in. Tell me about Williams Global Enterprises, Rebecca said, voice recorder running. When did you know you were building something special? Honestly, I think it was the third acquisition. A small electronics manufacturer in Ohio. The previous owners had given up, convinced the company was worthless. But I could see the potential. They had incredible products and loyal employees, they just needed better financial management and strategic direction. And now you've built that into a $2.8 billion acquisition capability? The Meridian deal represents everything I've learned about identifying undervalued companies and helping them reach their potential. It's not about destroying and rebuilding, it's about seeing what's already there and removing the obstacles. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, but when I answered out of curiosity, I heard my mother's voice. Sarah. Thank God. I'm calling from your Aunt Linda's phone because you're not answering ours. Sweetheart, we just saw the news. Forbes magazine is calling you a billionaire. Is this real? I looked at Rebecca, who was watching this conversation with fascination. Mom, where are you right now? We're at home, honey. We were planning to drive down for your graduation, but then Marcus's wife went into labor early, and Jennifer had that work crisis and your father's back was acting up. So you didn't come to my graduation because of Marcus's wife, Jennifer's job, and Dad's back? Well, yes, but we were going to call and explain. Mom, I have to go. I'm in the middle of a Forbes interview. A Forbes interview? Sir, we need to talk. This is incredible. Your father wants to know if this means you can help with the store's expansion. I hung up and looked at Rebecca. This is my family. They missed my graduation because of various excuses, but now that Forbes wants to interview me, suddenly they have time to talk. How does that make you feel? Rebecca asked gently. Honestly, it makes me realize that I've been building my success for the right reasons. I didn't do this to impress them or to prove them wrong. I did it because I love business, I love solving problems, and I love helping companies reach their potential. The photographer had been capturing everything. My phone calls, my expressions, the empty seats, even other families celebrating around us. This is powerful stuff, he said. The contrast tells the whole story. Ms. Williams, Rebecca said, What's next for Williams Global Enterprises? Integration is the immediate priority. Meridian Industries has incredible assets and talented people. Our job is to remove the bureaucratic obstacles that have been holding them back and help them innovate at the pace their market demands. And personally, what's next for Sarah Williams? I looked around the courtyard one more time. My classmates were finishing up their celebrations, heading off to dinner with their families, beginning the next chapter of their lives surrounded by people who loved and supported them. I was standing alone with a Forbes reporter, my phone full of calls from family members who suddenly cared about my success, holding a diploma that represented not just 2 years of education but the foundation of a business empire they'd never believed I could build. Personally, I said, I'm going to celebrate this achievement exactly the way I earned it, on my own terms, surrounded by people who recognize its value, not people who only care now that it's been validated by external success. Rebecca smiled. That's a perfect quote to end on. As the interview wrapped up and the photographer finished his shots, I finally looked at my phone. 47 missed calls. 32 text messages. 3 voicemails. The family that couldn't spare 4 hours for my graduation had spent the entire afternoon trying to reach me once they learned about my success. I scrolled through the messages. Sarah, we're so proud. We always knew you were special. Mom. Sis, we need to celebrate. Can you loan Marcus money for a house? Jennifer. Call me back. We need to discuss family investments. Dad. The whole family wants to have dinner tomorrow to celebrate. Marcus. I turned off my phone and looked around the now empty courtyard. The other families had gone home, taking their joy and their support and their unconditional love with them. But I wasn't alone. I had built something extraordinary. I had earned recognition from one of the most respected business publications in the world. I had proven that my vision, my work, and my instincts were not just valid but exceptional. Tomorrow I would have to decide how to handle my family's sudden interest in my success. I would have to navigate conversations about money and investment and suddenly wanting to be part of my life now that it was impressive. But tonight I was going to celebrate my graduation the way I'd earned it, as a successful business owner, a Forbes featured entrepreneur, and someone who had built something extraordinary without needing anyone else's permission or approval. I walked across the empty courtyard toward my car, diploma in hand, phone silent in my pocket, ready to begin the next chapter of my life on my own terms. The family that missed my graduation would always be my family. But they would never again be the arbiters of my worth.